Okay, so here we are in an alternate location tonight, partially because, everybody in Israel is in an alternate location. You guys aren't because you have a mamad here in your house, but we have to go down the street to the miklat. But maybe it's better that it's here anyway because in case we did have a azhara, thank you, a little while ago. And you never know when we'll have an azaka, a siren, so we could just go into your, I don't know if you allow me to go into the bedroom, but that's... No, it's not the bedroom, okay.
No, it's
the storage room, okay.
Full of glass.
As we were saying. So this week I got informed today that I'm going to be learning part of a long laning, the Shabbos, Vayakhel, and Pekudei, and HaChodesh. Wow. So you have to belt yourself in for a long laning. I'm doing part of it. So I'll try to talk a little bit about Vayakhel and Pekudei. HaChodesh we kind of talked about not too long ago, if you remember a little bit. I spoke about, there's I think a required reading, if there is such a thing, of Rav Hirsch on his commentary on Parshas HaChodesh, in which he discusses the basic relationship. He discusses why that's the first mitzvah in the Torah and why it's the bedrock of the relationship between Hashem and us. So I'm not going to talk about that now, but it's very good reading. Okay, but anyway, Vayakhel and Pekudei. So Vayakhel and Pekudei for a lot of people is a little difficult to read because unless you are particularly into architecture or home decorating or carpentry or I don't know what, you probably had enough of all the exact measurements of the Mishkan and the Big Day Kahuna and all the Kalim and etc. in Truma and Tetzaveh. Now, in painstaking detail, we go over all of it again. The only difference being then it's what you should do, and here it's what they did. So okay, fine. And by the way, not as well known, there's a third time that in Tanakh anyway, in Divrei Hayamim Chronicles, it also goes over also in all the details of all that. And then the question is, the Torah doesn't waste words, does it waste letters? Anybody who's just done soon the Gemara knows they darshan all kinds of things from an extra nuance, let alone a letter. Why all the repetition? What's it all about? So the Farshim don't offer that much, a little bit here and there. Actually, if you look at your Chumash, Rashi is very on Vayakhel and Pekudei is not much. It is much more text per page than in the average. So I'd like to share with you some ideas, mainly based on an essay written by a friend, Rabbi Asher Brander, who's a Rosh Kollel in Los Angeles. His brother is more famous, Kenny Brander, but yeah. But anyway, I'm an Asher Brander fan. He wrote some beautiful essays, and this one, the first idea is based on something he heard from one of his Rebbeim, Rabbi Meir Twersky, who is a grandson of Rav Soloveitchik. He's one of the Rashi Yeshiva in Yeshiva University, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan. So he said that there's an interesting thing that we find that several times, both in Parshas Teruba and Parshas Vayakhel and several other places, talking about the Mishkan, it says the following: Kechu meitchem teruba laHashem, take a teruba for Hashem, kol nediv leiv, yivieho es terubas Hashem. Anybody who is, how would you translate nediv leiv? Yeah, or donative heart, or somebody whose heart is filled with the spirit of wanting to donate, right? Right? You should bring the truma of Hashem. And it goes on to bring all the stuff that it's supposed to bring. Nediv leiv. Okay? So we have this idea that would seem that it's the div leiv. One basic meaning of the div leiv was probably that it was what people, filled up their heart with wanting to do it. They volunteered to do this. It's something that they weren't obligated to do, but they were generous and they had a spirit of donation, of volunteering, and they did that. right? However, there's also is it in fact, so the question is, was it really just about what they just decided to donate, or was there an actual mitzvah, a commandment, to build the base of Mikdash? There was, obviously. Vasuli Mikdash v'shachanti b'socham, that thou shalt make for me a sanctuary, and thou shalt bring, right? So it's interesting, he pointed out, that the mitzvah contains an aspect of it which is obligatory, you have to do it, and an aspect of it which is the ones who want to do it, those whose spirit moves them to do it, right, will do it. And in fact, we'll discuss this a little bit later, in Parshas Pekudei, it doesn't so much says Nediv Lev, it says Asher Nasa Libo Osam, the people who their heart raised them up. Although we'll see there's a difference in when that's used and when their heart moved them to donate. I'll give it away here a little bit. This is talking more about the bringing donations. That's more about the people who actually did the work. Okay? But what the difference is, why that is, we'll talk about. But he's saying that it's interesting that we have this idea that on the one hand, you have to do it. On the other hand, we're called upon to, it's the people who want to do it, who spirit moves themselves to do it. And, it reminds us of a few things. First of all, there's an interesting Ramban that says, on the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh, it says that someday will come and you will be in Eretz Yisrael, and it says L'shichno sidrishu uvasa shaba. You should find the place. It doesn't say where the place is going to be. The word Yerushalayim doesn't appear in the Torah. No, it appears in Tanakh several times, many times, but it doesn't appear in the Torah. It doesn't say. It just says you'll go to that place which I shall choose, or which you will choose. It says Malki Tzedek Melech Shalem, but that's as close as it gets, right? But that's nothing to do with Yerushalayim as being the place of the base of Mikdash, etc. It just when it refers to it in the Torah, it says someday there'll be a place. One place it says which you will choose, some places I will choose a place. There will be that place. And this is one of those. Shichno Sidrishu, how are you going to find it? You should search out the Shechina and you come there. Says the Ramban, interesting. Shetelchu me'eretz merchakim. You'll come from different places. V'tishalu, and you will ask, Ana derech beis Hashem, where's Hashem to be found? V'tomru ishal reyehu, and one Jew will say to the other one, Lechu v'na'aleh al har Hashem al beis Elokei Yaakov, a pasuk, let us go up together to the har Hashem, to the house of Elokei Yaakov, as it says, right, Tzion yishalu derech chinam mipneihem. And, okay, how you're going to find it that way. He brings the Sifri, means that maybe a Navi will tell you how. But even then, right, are you supposed to wait until the Navi tells you? He says, L'shichno sidrishu, you're supposed to go. So, I mean, in the sense there, on the one hand, and when are you supposed to have the base of Mikdash? That whole story, the whole coming of that epoch in the Jewish people, when you're supposed to have a king, when you're supposed to form a government. As we know, this period of Shoftim went like almost 500 years where they didn't do any of that. And, because the mitzvah is, yes, it's the mitzvah, but it's when you, right, want it, so to speak, right? So we have, again, this sort of, you're commanded to do it, but do you have to want to do it? When do you want to do it? What's going on with this? And in fact, there's even a more famous thing that we all know, that it says when they came to Sinai and we're going to receive the Torah, right? So was that something that they volunteered to do? Well, on the one hand, yeah. Famous words were said at Sinai. What are those? Na'aseh v'nishma, right? We will choose, we will hear. God came to us, and do you want the Torah? Yes, we'll do it. Okay. On the other hand, famous midrash, the Gemara, it says, Kaf aleim har kagigis. They held a mountain over them, right? If you accept the good, and if not, it's curtains. They say, okay? There's so many things that are you can talk about with that, but just to take out of it, there's this sort of also, on the one hand, they're commanded to do it, on the other hand, that they want to do it. And what Rav Twersky said was a very interesting idea, which is that in fact is the way Hashem wants us to approach the Torah, with that duality. Where on the one hand, we have to know we're commanded to do it. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, He wants us to want to do it.
Makes sense.
And if we just do it because we have to do it, then it's pretty sterile and pretty empty, you know. And you have people going through the motions, and you have people, you know. It just came to mind now. I remember once I went to one in the Shtiblach in Yerushalayim, and you know they have like 7 minyanim going at one time, starting every 15 minutes. So they're all holding a little bit of a different place. So this guy on Rosh Chodesh was in and out of there in 15 minutes. I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "Well, I counted. I need 3 Kaddishes, 2 Kedushas, 1 Kriyas Torah." He went from place to place, right? And he checked off all the boxes, and he got it done. So, did he accomplish all those things? Yeah. Did he really daven the way a mensch davens? I don't think so. But that's, you know, depends on how you approach what is davening. As the Kuzari and so many others talk about, it's like it should be the most precious time we have, the time we have to actually sit and address the master of the universe is interested in what we have to say. Some people take that very seriously, like my wife, for instance. You know, savor that time, and it's such a special time. And some people just, okay, got to do mincha, run in there and then get it over with, you know. And that's just one example of so many things in the Torah, of how it is, how do we do them, right? He puts it down as the paradox, good tight, right? That's the Maharal kind of says that, and he says that it's a paradox between obligation and voluntarism, which is the essence of a religious quest. We're obliged to build the Mishkan. Yes, at the same time we have to be voluntaristic. Simply a minimalistic mitzvah will not induce Shechina to be among us. You know, and it's such an important yesod about how we approach life, how we approach mitzvahs, how we approach the example we set for our children, in a community, the excitement about mitzvah Torah and mitzvahs, or okay, we got to do it, right? You know, yeah.
I see it in the words though, because when it says "V'shachanti b'sochem," and I'll build and I'll live in them. Them, we're told, are the ones that we open our hearts to, the ones that we build, and the div liboy are the ones who are there building it for them. It's not the ones who are not in the div liboy. It's the ones who are who are building who are the b'soicham.
So you say that Hashem only really lives within or among those who are really bringing their heart to the issue. Yeah. Yeah. It's
you get points for just showing up, though, too.
You do. Yeah. It's a difficult thing. I mean, on the one hand, the fact that people, have a lot of things that they could do today, and stay home and watch TV and do this and that, and people are, not even nonsense things. We're busy, and yet somebody takes the time to go to shul and go, you get some points for that, no question. You could get a lot of points, depending each person has their own cheshbon, with that only God can judge, what that person's really at and what's about. But
he goes to shul, he gets schar hodicha.
Right.
He gets schar for walking. Maybe that's the only schar he gets. But at least the Holocaust, he gets schar.
Yeah. At least for coming.
He's going to shul.
Right.
He went.
He got
up.
Okay.
He got up and he went.
So the guy who comes to shul and when he gets there, he probably falls asleep and he does a lot of schmoozing, but he goes through the basic davening. It's easy to mock it and to ridicule it, but it's the guy could have been doing other things. There are those people. When I was in Forest Hills, there was a guy who used to show up. He told me JFK, just for Kiddush. He used to come sort of right at the end of davening, and he would come. That I don't know how much schar halicha you get for. He probably made brachas. I could have made the same brachas at home. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to be the judge. But there is, one thing that did, tell me once is that there's a famous comment that Ramosha Feinstein Zatzal made once. He said that that one thing that killed Judaism for a lot of Jews in America is that people used to say, it's a schwer zu sein a Yid.
Yeah.
Difficult to be Jewish. And it was difficult when he first came to America. In those days it was very difficult to keep Shabbos, very difficult to find a job that you didn't have to violate Shabbos. Kashrus, very little available. A lot of things were difficult. And a lot of people said to their kids, schwer zu sein a Yid. And the kids got the message, it's difficult, and on the other hand, the outside world is interesting and fun and exciting and not like this old world European stuff that my parents represent, and they dropped it like flies. But he said if people had come with the attitude of, it's good to sein, it's great, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's a geschmack, as they say, right? That would be... that would have been a whole different experience, and that caused a lot of fall away. All right, so that's one aspect that we can talk about and can tie it into a little bit of some other things here. Skipping a little bit and looking a little bit more. That was more in Parshas Vayakhel. The Parshas Pekudei, we find another interesting aspect to it, and that is more not talking about the people who brought, but the people who formed the Mishkan. So we know that who are the people who formed it? Basically, there was a motley crew of all kinds of people who came and did stuff, and they were directed by Bezalel. Okay, now Bezalel actually was a very interesting person. He was very young, probably not more than 12 or 13. Yeah, I mean, if you just do the math, I mean, his grandfather, Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur, was Miriam's husband. There's a whole Gemara in Yavam is talking about how young a woman can conceive, and one of the arguments is brought by the age of Bezalel because so many generations in such a short time. So he's young, but more than that, both times whenever it talks about Bezalel, starting in last week's parsha in Kisisa, it says Re'ei karasi b'shem. Look, I've called Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur, right? So, and in this week's parsha also it says Re'u. So the Ramban comments on why does it say look? What's the look about? So the Ramban says, Omer Hashem LaMoshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Re'ei. And Moshe said, Re'u. Vatam, the reason is, he says, Kos ki Yisrael b'Mitzrayim. Where did the Jews come from? Till just a little short time before, they were slaves in Egypt. What did they know how to do? Build pyramids, maybe. But basically, they knew how to work with, like you see on the street over here, these guys work with cement, right? And bricks. Lo lamdu meleches kesef v'zohav v'charoshes avadim. They weren't silversmiths and goldsmiths, and knowing how to make diamonds, and they didn't see how to build fine furniture. They didn't see any of this. V'hinei hu pele, says the Ramban. It's a wonder. Sheyimatzei bahem adam chacham gadol. They should find a person amongst them who is all of a sudden this unbelievable expert, right, in how to make silver and how to make gold and how to make this, right, and choshe v'roke, and how to weave and how to make. He knew all these things. Because even he says that those who really spend time learning these things, lo yimatzei baki b'kolam news, because you find somebody who's an expert silversmith, not necessarily an expert weaver. Right? Here's one person who knew all of those things. How's that possible? Right? Right? He says, "V'hayodim haragilim b'hem b'voyadem tamid betita v'refesh." Right? Usually, most people, even when they come, right, their hands are full of all the clay and the dirt, etc. They can't then do fine work with with these beautiful things. And furthermore, Chacham Gadol, he was very wise, he understood, he was able to figure it out, right? L'chein Amar, Hashem said to Moshe, Yireh HaPelazeh, he would take note, right? Look at this Pella. And he should know, Ki hu mileo so ruach Elokim, that where did this come from? Obviously it was a special gift from God, that he was given this genius. Right? He was given this genius inside of him, but to know the Mishkan and all the Kalim and what they should do, and not only that, of course, he says that it wasn't just the physical work of making the Kalim, but they all had these special kavanas that they Al Pi Kabbalah, this meant this and this meant that, and all sorts of very deep things. He knew all that, right? How that? Because Hashem wanted the Mishkan to be created, and it was created for His honor, and He knew already before. And as it says, before I created you, I provided this. In other words. And he brings other cases of that for Shabbos and other things. And Adam Arishon, Hashem provides, when we need something, He provides it for us. He provides the means. If He doesn't ask us to do something without giving us the ability. And here you needed a person like that. So, right? He gave it to him. So Bezalel was, maybe we would call him today a prodigy. I mean, the only thing when it comes to mind when I was thinking about the Ramban. Did you see that movie Amadeus?
Sure.
Right? So, Mozart was...
Yeah.
I mean, the whole movie is about Salerni, is his name, the other guy? So I don't know, the older guy who was Salieri, who was somebody who studied many years very hard to become this, and finally rose to become the king's right. And then he worked hard and he created this piece, and Mozart listened to it once, and then he made it 5 times better. It was. I often think, I think about Mozart, I think about, Beethoven. Beethoven, anything we know about him is that he was a pretty angry person, didn't get along with anybody. He was, not a nice, but the most sublime, beautiful sense. And the Moonlight Sonata is just incredibly moving. You can't listen to that seriously without being moved to your soul. That's, where's it come from? You don't just sit down one day and say, okay, I'm going to write this, I'm into music more, so I'm thinking more in the music than I'm with art. I'm hopeless, but with music I can relate to this. And for many years I wanted to compose a niggin. Okay, today I'm going to sit down. I'm going to. I don't know. What do you do? And then Shlomo Karlbach has thousands of them just come into his head. And I mean, I assume as Rush used to say, talent on loan from God. It's it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. So you have these people. Okay, so they're special individuals. But then the Torah also talks about the cholash and nosa liba oisan, that whoever raised their heart to help with the malacha. So the Ramban says something about that, which is very interesting. He says, Al hachachamim ha'osim malacha yomar kein. It says, Vayavo kol isha nisa'o libo, the people who their heart raised them. He says, Ki lo matzinu ala misnadvim nisiyas lev. We don't find this lashon about what we talked about, the people who were the donors. It says they had nedivus. So what does it mean, nisa'o libo? L'korv l'melacha? Ki lo, them too. Lo yeya bahem shalamad et hamelacha. None of them knew this from, the work they used to do back in Egypt. Right? Or they didn't, not only that, how did they come and how do they think that they could do anything? I mean, people want to help, but, what are you going to do? In fact, it reminds me, it says, Ve'asu es ha'shulchan vayasu, they made it. They wanted to do it, right? But who made it? Actually, Bezalel and 1 or 2 very trusted people made it. But everybody wants to help. Sometimes when there's this thing, you have that in Israel often, when a lot of people want to help, and they want to do, but sometimes biggest help is thanks very much, but help us do the cost and then stay away. Let the artisans do the work. In fact, that's one of the great moments in Parshas Vayakhel, which is never again repeated in history, where they've said that they were bringing and bringing and bringing, and he said people are bringing too much, tell them to stop bringing. The only time they ever announced we have too much, no more donations accepted, and why that is, that's a whole other thing. I don't want to go there now. But basically, there's one thing that you do see is that sometimes it's hard to help, but there's certain people, nevertheless, that's what the Rabban is saying, right? That even though that they didn't know necessarily, but matzah b'tivo sheyada lasas kain. People really wanted to do something, and somehow they saw something inside of themselves. They looked and said, "What can I do? There must be something I can do. Okay, maybe I can't do the gold work. I can't do this, but maybe I can help with, spinning the yarn. Maybe I can help with, chopping the wood. Or maybe I could do with it. Vayigba lovo libo b'darcha Hashem, and their heart raised up in the ways of Hashem. That's a pasuk in Tehillim somewhere. I forget exactly. He's paraphrasing. And they came before Moshe and they said to him, Ani aseh kol asher never. I'm here to do whatever you need. And somehow, naso libo, their heart was raised up, lekarva lemalacha, to come to do the work. And so heviu hatruma, and the people were donating, they gave the money. So we see over here again that a very interesting idea, which is that, you know, when a person wants to do something, when you want to help, you know, if a person really wants to help, there's usually something that everybody can do. Maybe not, you know, the glorious jobs. You know, I often think when the Beis Hamikdash is built tomorrow, I'm a Kohen, Baruch Hashem, what am I going to do? You know, I have somehow a deep sense that they're going to stick me in the room where they had the guys pulling the worms out of the wood that went on the Mizbeach. That's going to be my job. I don't know. maybe not. Somebody's got to do it. I don't know. But maybe I'll get to bring a carbon once or twice. I don't know. But probably they'll have the young guys do it more than that. I don't know if I'm up to schlepping a bull up onto the Mizbeach, but
or you're still, so we're left.
But,
so whatever, you know?
but somebody's got to do it, and everybody needs to find their place, right? And a lot of it's about if we have to do what we can. We spoke like the last time we met about the menorah, right? That Moshe couldn't do the menorah, but he had nevertheless did what he could, and then Hashem does the rest. And it's part of our thing to try to know that we're obligated to do it, feel that obligation, try to do what we can, try to put our heart into it, and then Hashem helps us. And that's you know, it's a challenge for us, so to speak, right? That Hashem, because Hashem wants us to have that. Hashem wants us to know that we're obligated, but He wants us to want to do more. He wants us to look for that. L'shichno sidrishot, to look for it, and that's also just to finish off. I think it's very much about even to our day with the Mishkan, because today, of course, what we have, you know, where we always are looking forward to Mashiach coming and to the Beis Hamikdash being rebuilt. I don't know if you saw, there was a clay yucker being passed around that it says something about that in the, or maybe it was somebody, I'm not sure it was a clay yucker, maybe B'nai Yissaschar, I'm not sure. One or two people showed it to me. They says eventually when Mashiach's going to come, it's going to start a war with Amalek around Parshas Zachar and on Purim, and then it's going to be Beis Zachar, and then on Pesach Mashiach's going to come and we'll build the Beis Hamikdash. There's Gemara Rosh Hashanah that says the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built on Pesach. Who knows? Maybe we're there now. And certainly, what we're going through right now is pretty amazing.
We'll have fireworks tonight, so.
Maybe, yeah. Amalek is being destroyed. It's incredible that happened on Parshas Zachar, and who knows? But part of it is also that. So we're into thinking about these things. But I heard from Rabbi Wein once. He says in this week's parsha we see about the putting up of the Mishkan. It says Hakem, Takum, and Vayakhel. One is sort of a past tense, present tense, and future tense. And the Gemara says points that out, that one is about the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash, and the Beis Hamikdash in the future. The Beis Hamikdash in the future, that we'll have to put it up. And based on that, he was talking about that there's a strong difference of opinion, if you will, amongst some of the Chachamim and the Gedolim over the years about what our attitude ought to be towards how much are we supposed to try to look for it to bring about Mashiach and to bring about the coming of the Beis Hamikdash, etc. There's, for instance, he'd like to quote that there was a censored section of the Tzidkas HaTzadik by Rav Tzadok, and Rav Tzadok said that it says about the Ma'apilim that Hashem said, I forget the pasuk exactly, he said that they were Ma'apilim, the Ma'apilim were the ones after the story of the Meraglim. They tried to go anyway, even though they told it wasn't time to go. So Hashem said that, don't go, you can't go now. You can't go, now you can't go. So he was medayik, now you can't go. But someday we have to be ma'apilim. Someday we have to go, and we have to try to bring around about the geula shlema. And most Israelis, if you talk to them about the ma'apilim, they don't know about what happened with the Meraglim. Most Israelis know what the Ma'apilim are in modern Israel. The Ma'apilim are basically the people who were especially in pre-1948 when the British were blockading and the people tried to get around and bring people in anyway and beyond them. They were called the Nivrit. They were called Ma'apilim. But so people who were trying to force them to come in. But and that's been a question till now. How much are we supposed to try to bring the Geula? Satmarov and others like him felt that, it's a big problem. We shouldn't be, it says, the Shalosh Shavuos and the 3 oaths, and we're not allowed to do anything about it till Mashiach comes by itself. That was one opinion. But the opinion of many others, and from what anybody who lives here with an open mind, I think, could see, it's happening. It's happening. We're here. More than about 50% of the Jewish people are already here. Yeah, it's either close or very close to 50% of the Jewish of the world Jewish population is here.
You don't know who's Jewish.
That's also true, but also in Chul, how many years I grew up in a world of intermarriage, big time.
Things are going downhill over there.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's certainly where you're from in Omaha, but even in Lakewood and Muncie and all these places, which intermarriage isn't such a problem, but anti-Semitism is growing, and there's a lot of stuff happening which is pretty negative, but. Here, Baruch Hashem, look at the way the world is being built. Look at the Medina with the faults that it has. It's just an incredible chesed that we have. What's happening. So, are we supposed to make him? Are we supposed to put it up? Are we not? The Gemara talks about that, whether the Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash, is going to be something that Hashem brings down, or we're going to build it ourselves, right? It has to do with that thing on Pesach, because if it comes on the first day of Pesach, how can we do it? Because, we can't work on Pesach. Well, maybe there's a whole discussion about that. But the bottom line is, we don't really know, as the Rambam says, until it happens. But I think we all, especially those who live here, and I think most people understand it's happening, it's on the way, it's coming. And it should only come in Mitzvah Hashem soon, but it has to come with our not only being mechuyev to build the Beis HaMikdash, but wanting it, looking for it, searching for it, trying to find what we can do to help with it, and if we do so, b'mhayru b'yamaynu.